All right, everybody, what's going on? This is Sukaba, and we are back for a new season of the VBL-S, Season 11. That's a lot of seasons. And I'm joined by now 4 distinguished gentlemen. Please introduce yourselves.
All right. Hi, I am Colby. I am Code Dameron. I am the coach of the Boca Raton Belly Bolts. And I am a certified old man, apparently, ready to talk about some Pokemon teams.
Absolutely.
I am second. I am James Dalton Bell, Dr. JDB. I'm leaning into the doctor thing now, as we'll see over this season. But the doctor is in, and he's not drinking alcohol tonight. It's just LaCroix.
Wow, that was a nice crack for the mic, though.
That
was like mind blowing. All
right,
right,
really
let's
pick that up well.
Yeah.
James actually wanted to make an announcement. He's actually going back to school to officially become a doctor. So congratulations, James. Inspired by the VBL.
Well done.
That's right.
All right. Yeah, we're actually sponsoring his tuition as well. I heard. I think it's coming out of Sam Axe's college fund. But
okay, yeah, that's right. All right, because I didn't sign up for that shit. Anyways, my friends call me Daddy. I am here to enjoy a beverage or two with my esteemed colleagues and friends, and I am ready to eviscerate some of these teams tonight.
Wow. You chose violence tonight.
I am Steve. Happy to be back. I've missed the last couple old man reviews, so glad to be here with a couple beer.
All right. Well, I think we're just about ready to get started. We've got 16 teams in the Hearthstone conference. We're going to do this in 2 parts. So we're going to look at the first 8 alphabetically, and then we'll do the next 8 after a brief intermission. So I believe our first team is Camo Dudes, and Dr. JDB, you're going to take the lead on this one, I believe, right?
That is the plan. All right. So I think the nothing higher than 15 was intentional, but whether it was or not, it happened, and it gave Camo a depth that a lot of teams do not have. A lot of teams have a lot of first and second picks, and then 8th, 9th, and 10th picks on their team, and Camo has a much broader team in terms of bringable Pokemon. I think there's a chance though. So I mean, it's on screen, right? Tsukaba, you got the team pulled up.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, a lot of the Pokemon are kind of only do one thing, right? But they all do that role pretty well for the most part. There's a couple that can do a couple things. Gyarados, maybe you run Thunder Wave, Taunt, Icy Wind 1 week or something like that. Galarian Articuno, maybe it's Nasty Plot, maybe it's setting Tailwind, maybe it's setting Trick Room. You know, it can do a couple different things. But for the most part, they're Pokemon that the role they do is pretty clear, right? Florges, Special Wall. Tanks hits. Fires off Moonblast because Moonblast is broken. Persian Alola is going to fake things out. It's going to, have infinite defensive capabilities with Fur Coat. It's going to Icy Wind stuff, things like that. Iron Thorns is going to take a fighting type attack and go to 20% and then deal 60% to something and then die. But like each one does a thing, right?
Do they do enough together?
So that's kind of what I was getting at, right? Each one does a thing, and it's a pretty broad team, but there's not tons and tons of cohesion as a squad, I think.
Yeah.
So, before we jump into the synergy, what does Okidogi do? What is that Pokemon?
Great question.
It's Toxicroak with more stats or something?
It's very bulky. It's a really good setup mon. Guard Dog is anti-intimidate, which is
and it's got
very good.
Every coverage move you could want in a fit. Like it's got all the punches. It's got good rock and ground moves. It's got it's got great coverage. Is basically the other thing that it does.
Yeah. Unintimidatable 128 attack is really good.
But I mean, it's 80 speed. There's a lot of Pokemon that I'm just playing contrarian here. I'm not sure if a base 80 speed I can't get intimidated is worth a first pick, and I do think that it's worth a first pick at 15. I think that if this Pokemon was picked up for the intent of I want to be 15 and below, I think it's a great first pick, especially with the rest of the team. But I haven't played with this Pokemon yet, and I look at 80 speed and I go,
Yeah, and I kind of feel like speed control on this team might be a little bit of an option, or a weaker option, because you don't have the really terrifically strong Tailwind setter or Trick Room setter that you see out of a lot of other teams have a really bulky, slow Trick Room setter, or like Prankster Tailwind is flying around in the current meta, so you don't really see that on this team either. I mean, Fake Out is nice next to Articuno or something like that to get it set up, but other than that, not a ton of options.
Yeah,
Articuno was my main Tailwind Mon last season, and it is not great at doing that.
It's just easy to stop, right? It's not obscenely fast to where you can outspeed it with like a feint and then a priority move to kill it. Like you don't really need to game plan that much to stop an Articuno Fake Out, and you're definitely focused on Articuno as a speed control setter in general, since it gets that Trick Room option as well. I think Persian A is pulling a lot of weight here, just as the fastest Mon, and also as that versatile supportive piece. Like you said, Daddy, I mean, the speed control is not what you'd want to see, especially with those like base 80 Mons. You really wish you had like a fast Tailwind or like some premium way of getting that mode up. Persian's going to be Icy Winding. It's going to be Faking Out to allow setup. It's going to be Icy Winding, Thunder Waving. And I think the flexibility it offers is going to be the way this team operates, in my opinion. But, Persian did take a hit this gen with the Covert Cloak, stopping the Fake Out and the Icy Wind potentially. So it's going to require some creativity to get those 80 speed Mons into a position to win the game.
The switch-in options are pretty nice, though, especially when you see a lot of those like 4 times ground weaknesses, but then you have 3 immunities to pair with it. So, maybe this will be a very switch-heavy team, but if you can't reliably go first, I don't know how impactful that is.
Yeah, I'll just add that the base stats here are incredible. I think this team might have the highest average base stat total in the entire league.
Yeah, quite possible. What happens if you get rid of
Diglett and consider that Diplin can hold an Eviolite?
Diplin is just never dying. Yeah, my camo notes say Diplin never dies.
So this team is bizarre, but so was his team last season, and he made it to the semifinals.
Yeah, he's shown he can win with some bizarre strats.
Yeah, I think in spite of a lot of 4x weaknesses, a very clean type chart.
Absolutely.
Especially when you get rid of the Diglett.
I think this is one of those teams that if you if the right Calm Mind goes up or the right Dragon Dance, if one thing goes right, then suddenly this team's going to roll you over. If Okidogi finds the way to get the speed control, or the leads are bad, or the Intimidate goes wrong, then this team goes nuts.
All right, I think we're ready to tier it. What do you think, guys?
Seems like a great B tier to start.
Yeah, it's like an upper B tier team in my opinion.
That's exactly what I was thinking. For me,
S tier logo though.
Yeah, really nice, really clean.
Me and my partner went through all of the VBL logos that have ever been today, and she gave her opinions on all of them. I got bad news for you, Daddy.
I was number 1 across the board.
Literal bottom of the list.
Oh,
Philadelphia.
So wait. My question is, when's the logo tier list come out? That's my question. At this point,
see that one, I'd be willing to accept the worst coach in the league if it comes to that. I'll take that. I'll take that out.
She loved the Waterloo Wormadams though. Love that times New Roman W.
Yep.
Yeah, times New Roman W in
so
a approximate circle.
So clean. All right, let's move forward. We've got Canner with the little flashback for this team. Daddy, what do we think about this team over here?
We got the Can Man. So I mean, this is just a Series A meta team here. We got with the Dondozo Tatsuguri, which is how much? 39 points total, which at this stage of the game seems a little bit overkill to me. But still a super solid combo there. I mean, there are definitely reliable ways to get it set up. You have Bisharp with Defiant. to counteract some of those intimidates. Dondozo also gets Water Veil, to negate some of those Will-O-Wisps that might be coming out. Heracross would love to get Will-O-Wisped. So there's definitely some synergy here with those top picks. Definitely one of the things that I found alarming about it the first time Canner drafted it, and now again this time, is how physically attack oriented this team is. Really, the only special attacker on this team is Tatsugiri, which
Ribombee.
isn't. Yeah, okay. Moonblast is a move that is good.
Yeah, Moonblast is
Plus
great.
Quiver Dance.
Yeah, true. I mean, the team has options.
Unfake-outable Tailwind is awesome too.
Flamigo is
Love that.
such an awesome pairing with the sushi combo too. So you definitely can't count that out. I don't know. What do you guys think about this team the second time around?
I
He
think
does
there's
have
Go ahead.
Explosion Golem as well to pair with perhaps an Endure Toxic Orb Tatsugiri, so you can actually activate that Flamigo pretty well.
Revealing
I
the
love
strats
that.
already, huh?
Damn.
That's a ladder strat. I mean, I love my bullshit ladder strats.
Well, I was just gonna say that there's something to be said about playing with something that's comfortable for you, and I think that's kind of what Canner was going for here, saying, you know what, I had my best VBL season with the core of Sushi Combo, Heracross, and Bisharp. Let's run it back. I respect that, honestly, because I've been a person that's drafted a lot of comfort picks for me. I personally like having a Prankster Mon. I pretty much get one every season.
Yeah, me too.
It's a play style I'm comfortable with. So if Canner thinks that these, physical attackers with the sushi was what he was comfortable with, I love that he's going back for it. But he really, I think we did lose the fact that, yes, he did start with 4 straight picks that were exactly what he had before. But this is a different team, fundamentally. We've got the Ribombee, which creates a different kind of supportive vibe than the Murkrow, which he had initially. We've got the Flamigo this time, which adds that layer to the sushi combo where you have to worry about a boost getting copied, right? And some of these low tiers are definitely usable. Like the Munchlax, even with an EVLA, can get really bulky. Can set up under Trick Room, has supportive options, and the Yawn and stuff. Definitely a solid value for 3 points. Even the Growlithe Hisui with Intimidate, it's not really as bringable as it looks, but it could make an appearance for that Intimidate.
Growlithe Hisui still has Head Smash.
Yes.
Yeah, it's still got Rockhead Head Smash. It's still, it gets Flare Blitz. It has high base power
It's
moves.
in theory bringable, but it's not coming more than once or twice, right? Really, this team
100%.
is kind of top heavy, but so are a lot of teams with this reduced budget. And it's really going to come down to, is the sushi combo still as potent as it was when it started? I think that's going to be what determines the success of this team, in my opinion.
I think it is not as strong as it once was, which I think, especially with all the points you spend on those two combined, I think it makes this team weaker this time around.
It's a
Almost 40
14-point
Tax you have to
premium.
pay. Yeah.
That we have, right? Yeah.
It's worth noting that Haze is way more common now than it was in Series A as well.
and knock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there is a slight advantage that you get from sync draft over, or perhaps no, not the sync draft, the Swiss format that we're using.
Oh, Swiss format.
Because people may have not specifically drafted something to deal with Dondozo Tatsugiri because they don't know for sure if they're going to be playing it. So do you grab that Haze user with Dozogiri in your group and then it just sits there doing nothing? Like a Shellos. Shellos is not something that I would pick this season because I don't know if I'm playing Dozogiri. Whereas when I did draft it, Ryan first picked Dozogiri. So, all right, Shellos, you're in.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, Kobe? Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to highlight Ribombee Speed Swap. I think that this is an excellent speed swap team. I think Ribombee can speed swap onto Golem to get that fast explosion, speed swap onto Dondozo to have, and then go into the Tatsugiri later. I think that also the Quiver Dance with the Flamigo. I know that Flamigo isn't a special attacker, but it is. There are excellent boosting opportunities on this team that Flamigo can take advantage of. I don't think you're rock polishing Golem, but I do think that speed swap onto Golem, speed swap into Growlithe, get some surprise kills. This Ribombee is going to be the star of this team. and with Shield Dust, it's kind of hard to get under. You can't really fake it out. I bet it
Yeah,
doesn't
it's
tie to...
unfake-outable Tailwind. It's unfake-outable Quiver Dance. Speed Swap, definitely.
Or does it get Sleep Powder or something?
Set a screen.
Point is,
Stun Spore or something.
I think Rabambi is the thing that takes this team from... It's the perfect support for this team.
It does not.
I want to see... and then the Weirder. I want to talk about the Weirder because we haven't mentioned it at all. I think it's a very good Trick Room setter. I think this team does want to do a little bit of switching in and out with the Tatsugiri Dondozo. I think the Heracross isn't always going to be positioned well. And I think being able to switch back and forth with the Weirder to get Intimidate but also threaten the Trick Room, it's good, it's bulky. It's got Sap Sipper. Skill Swap Defiant. Yeah, there you go, with Bisharp. I think that Weird Ear comes a lot of weeks on this team, and not just because it's the 6th Mon.
We've also got the Belly Drum on the Munchlax. That's another big boost for Fumigo to copy.
What is Munchlax doing 4th from last here? Does Munchlax do something that I don't know about?
There have been, yes. It
really
does not
bulky.
have self-destruct anymore, sadly. However, both myself and Sly have used it as just rest, sleep talk, stockpile, +1. Just live forever and win the game.
Sure. Okay.
For 3 points, why not?
Yeah, and also it's base 5 speed, so it's like if you get into a Trick Room matchup or if you want Trick Room to be up, like it gets to do what it wants before anybody else, just all the time. Like, so it's
That's so slow.
I know, right? It's crazy,
Yeah.
and I mean it's got
It
lucky,
has,
so like
It has Encore at base 5 speed.
Hey,
Ooh.
get that thing in Trick Room. Boom. I'll just wrap this up with this team just by saying that, it, like I said before, there's definitely a lot of flaws here. It's a top-heavy team with a questionably still good, very heavily investment on the combo at the start. We'll see if it's still as good as it once was. And I really do agree with Daddy that the lack of a potent special attacker will pose issues for this team. I would have really liked to see at least one major threat on the special side. That's not Tatsugiri, which wants to be in Donzo's mouth most of the time. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a C tier for me with the potential to become a low B, depending on how these other teams shape out. What do you guys think?
I'd agree with C. Yeah. Type chart doesn't look phenomenal either.
I like Camo's team better for sure.
Definitely a lot of exploitable weaknesses on this type chart. No real fade fairy resists, electric resist, etc. So, yeah, I think that's a good spot for now. But we're gonna move on to a team from our very own member here, Kodamron. Daddy, I think you had some thoughts on this one as well. You wanted to share.
Yeah,
I'll mute.
Yeah, you should, because you're gonna be upset with what I have to say about this team. Unlike Jace's team in the other conference, which is phenomenal, this team sucks. Okay, I don't know what you were thinking, because I compare it. I understand you guys will never play each other, but it's kind of unbelievable that you put a team together like this, and we have Jace on the other end. Anyways, jumping into it, I actually really like the roaring mid this season. I like the pairings you have here with the Wheezing Galar. So you get that booster energy set up, and then you switch in the Wheezing, shut off everybody else's ability, but you can maintain your boost, which I think is really nice. And then obviously slacking
Proto
Sorry?
isn't shut off by gas.
Yeah, it
Right,
just
right.
isn't
That's what-
shut off at all. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, and then slacking for, how many points was it? 9 or something? With Wheezing in the format seems kind of
13.
criminal. Okay, so so we did
13.
bump it up. Okay, so you at least had to invest some points into that. To me, the team does feel a little top heavy. So I did watch your video. I haven't watched Jace's yet, but I assume that they're relatively similar. The bottom 5 to me, I know that you have your justifications for them, and I hear it, I understand it. I don't think that these Mons are terribly strong. I do think Venonat is a little surprising as a redirector. I used it to pretty good effect, I think, whenever I had it a couple seasons ago. I do
It can live
think
on tap,
with
I guess.
EVL Lite, it can get in there, it can redirect. It's not bad at all. I don't. Can anybody recall a time when we saw Ampharos do anything in VBL?
Sam drafted it and it did nothing.
Nope.
Yeah, I think Mega Ampharos might have got taken once in a VBL-N season as well, and nothing ever happened with it. The one thing on Venonat I would say is I had Venonat in the Little Cup season, and it was basically never bringable. So, like, when it's a bunch of real Pokemon, I struggle to see how much value you're going to get out of Venonat. But granted, that's a relatively minor thing, right?
For 3 points, I think it's great value. I mean, Compound Eyes, you get that extremely accurate sleep powder. You know, you put something to sleep, you rage powder something away. With EVL Lite, the bulk's not terrible, or you could throw a sash on it. I mean, you put one thing to sleep with it, or maybe even two things if people ignore it. I think that's worth 3 points.
Yeah,
I think it's worth 3 points too, but I don't know that it is ever actually. I think it's going to be your 7th or 8th best Pokemon for a matchup a lot of times.
Yeah, that's
Definitely.
fair.
And it's a low investment, so not the biggest deal in the world.
Yeah.
I really think with this team, you know, I think you're bringing like 5 out of these top 6 like every week, and maybe like one sub in, like the Avalugg comes in a nice Trick Room matchup, or a good physical, a physical heavy team. You know, maybe the Lurantis comes for some fun contrary shenanigans into a good matchup. But I think most of the time, fundamentally, you're prepping for these top 6 and just hoping you can deal with the rest of them, which is likely, I would say. Like, I don't think anything in this second half of the draft really requires an outstanding amount of special prep outside of maybe the Avalugg if you are a physically heavy team. But, you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing. As we've seen, you know, you can have a top heavy core that can be very dominant and hard to deal with if they synergize well with each other, which is great. You know, I've always struggled personally to see Weezing as a mon that I could use effectively, just because I never really understand how to use neutralizing gas without ruining it for myself as well. But I think this team really kind of opened my eyes to what that mon can be. Like, you guys really did a good job getting good pairings for that Weezing. You know, with the competitive, getting rid of that's not the biggest deal, especially if you're not in a matchup with versus Intimidate. You know, the Roaring Moon isn't unaffected. The Truant is a great, you know, the Delphox doesn't really care about its ability. So yeah, I think it's a good Weezing team and a great top 6 core that will have success.
What's nice about competitive is that if I have a field of Weezing and Melodic and I'm losing that competitive and I'm against your Lando T, which always has Intimidate, I can switch out Weezing. Intimidate will trigger before my guy comes in. I'll get my competitive boost. And then here comes Scizor, here comes Slacking, here comes Roaring Moon.
Right.
They're not intimidated, and I'm +2 Melodic. I can choose when that happens.
So
And
you get control of it.
The defensive synergy, especially between the 5 or the top 6 or whatever, is really strong. So there's not a lot of common weaknesses at all, and there's a lot of resistances. So calling those switches out on Colby's end is going to be really strong too. I mean, that Roaring Moon has that 4 times fairy weakness, but there's no other fairy weaknesses on the team. And out of those top 6, I'm not really counting Venonat and Bronzor in this. There's still 3 other fairy resists, even if you don't count those 2 NFEs, which will probably come a couple times this season. I think that we're sleeping on Venonat a little bit. I think it's pretty good.
And
I think you're more likely to bring Bronzor than Venonat. Most of it, in all honesty. I mean, maybe I'm just down on Venonat. Maybe it was a poorly positioned Little Cup season. Maybe I
Prove him
used it
wrong,
wrong.
Colby. Prove him wrong.
I'm
Maybe.
excited for Mega Kicks with 75 base accuracy on Slacking with Compound Eyes. Slacking bugging out his eyes, always kicking you.
It does have skill swap, yeah.
I will just add that I love the fact that Roaring Moon attracts a lot of Terra Fairies, because a lot of teams lack strong offensive fairy options to deal with it. So you're going to see a lot of Terra Fairies that Roaring Moon can't really hit. And what do you have to take care of fairies? Scizor. It's like such a great typing matchup, not only just for switch-ins, but for taking care of those Terras that your team is enforcing.
And Weezing. Weezing likes to see fairies on the other side too.
Definitely.
You know what is going to feel really bad when you're building against this team is when you bring ability shield on your mon that really needs its ability, and then Weezing is just levitate stockpile, or Weezing is Misty Surge with a setup Scizor.
Yeah.
It's Misty Surge Magician Delphox.
Yeah.
You get the
There you
Misty
go.
Seed, you steal
Yep.
some items.
Hey.
Oh, you're gonna have good ways to set up Magician. I considered Magician probably 5 of 7 weeks, and I think every time but one I ended up bringing Delphox. It ended up being Blaze, just because that's 30%. Like that's a huge boost when it's there, and
You
Magician
put a sash on it.
kind of always just
Blaze.
felt too cute.
Yeah,
But-
I'm excited to do funky things with this team. I think that I'm just a huge Lurantis believer. I was so hype when I saw that it got superpower back, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get the Lurantis. That's gonna be my grass type. And fighting type moves, like I got body press, I got superpower, I have close combat on Scizor, and I have no fighting types.
Mhm.
So
And even when the team does seem a little top heavy, when they mesh so well, it's still kind of hard to prep around. Like we saw it with the name's escaping me. The Slushies team the last season, extremely top heavy, but still kind of difficult to prep around, even though you kind of knew what was coming. I feel like this team might even be a little harder to prep around, even if you feel like you know what's coming.
yeah,
For me,
I hope that my bottom half shows its value. I do think that there's room for Ampharos and Avalugg and Lurantis that don't show in looking at the team, but when you look at the matchup, you say, you know what? I think that Lurantis, they're going to have to Icy Wind and intimidate me. Here comes Lurantis. Or you know what? If I go hard Trick Room mode, Bronzor, Lurantis, Avalugg, Ampharos, Scizor, Melodic, Weezing are actually all pretty slow. And you could just go hard Trick Room mode with that. And they're
I'm a big
pretty good.
Avalugg believer.
yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Big
I like
numbers.
Avalugg too. I mean,
Great.
it's
Great
low
use to it.
points, and my guess is your team every week is going to be, for the most part, it's going to be your top 4 plus 1 of Delphox and Slaking plus 1 of your bottom 5.
Yeah.
Pretty much every week, right? Because you're going to find the bit. You're going to find the time where they're not going to be able to handle contrary superpower, and you're going to find the week where you really want to set Trick Room.
This might be the sort of team that wishes it was in a 7-week or 8-week season,
Hmm.
where
It could
once
be.
once I figure out the intricacies, once I have a combined 6 matches under my belt, then I start to see what the team is actually trying to do.
Yeah, and I am really excited. I think we're all excited to see what you guys do with the Weezing and the Roaring Moon Slaking. It's gonna be fun. For me, this is going to be our first A-tier team. I really do like
Yeah, I
that
think it's
top
an A-tier
synergy.
team as well.
And I think the low
Agreed.
tiers are usable enough to where it doesn't feel as top-heavy as we're saying it is. But, who knows what's actually going to come every week. For me, it's an A-tier for now.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on. We've got Furat,
All right.
veteran
We're going to
coach.
talk about Furat Bang returning second season of VBL-S plus 1 season of VBL-N, I believe.
Maybe
Think
more than
Pat-
Maybe
Maybe
more
more.
than that.
I feel
More
like
than
it's
that.
more.
Maybe more? Well, regardless.
What is this rock weakness? Oh my god.
Back.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean,
holy.
Sorry,
It's
take it
not
away,
rock
Jake.
weak. It's just lack of resists.
yeah, has anybody checked on the distribution for Rock Slide lately?
everything gets it right. It's like protect.
Is it still something like 60 or 70% of all fully evolved Pokemon?
He's got Intimidate, though. He's fine.
So, yes, does have Intimidate. However, other than that, I still think it's correct to target the defensive side of this team basically 100% of the time. I mean, so if you remove Bramblett and Turtwig's from the averages, you're still at a 73 average base defense,
This team is fast.
which is pretty low.
Very fast.
Yeah. Also, it's incredibly fast.
Zoom zoom.
It basically is never going to be setting Trick Room, right? And it doesn't have great ways to fight against Trick Room. Like if the other team wants it, other than try to kill you with Ivy Cudgel plus Hurricane or something like that. Like try to double target the Trick Room setter. Maybe an Imprison and Trick Room, but Miss Magius is only okay. Somebody falls into the Cyclozar trap every season.
I'm on this hot doo-doo.
Yeah, this team is pretty weak. Well, obviously the rock weakness we talked about, but it's pretty weak to fairy and ice and fire also, which are all really strong offensive typings
Yeah,
that you're going to
like
see a lot of.
These are the kind of coverage types you want to be bringing. Like, I mean, I guess, yeah, the flash fire, but other than that, your only fire resist is Cyclozar.
Yeah.
I also am concerned about the lack of flying resists. I think flying is a very common neutral coverage move, and Ogerpon is kind of the defensive. Ogerpon Landorus is kind of where you want to stay defensively on this team. All the base stat total in this team is in speed, right? Speed and offense, and there's not a lot of defense. So you really need Ogerpon to stick out, and when you don't have a way to really shore up its flying resist, then your Ogerpon isn't going to last as long. I didn't realize how many resistances Ogerpon doesn't have. Huh.
Yeah, and I feel like Rotom Frost is going to be a really big part of this team, which isn't necessarily a good thing. It is a Rotom form, which makes it strong in itself, but it also likes to Terra a lot. I had it last season, and I liked it. It was a really solid part of my team, but a lot of times when I brought it, it wanted to use Terra because Ice type is truly, truly terrible defensive typing. But I feel like this team's going to have to rely on it quite a bit. Weavile, the typing doesn't matter as much because it's just going to run Sash, right?
Yeah,
Is there a trade that this team could make that... I'm not talking specific Pokemon. If this team were to trade out some of its faster threats for a bulky slow mon, not necessarily I want a Trick Room mon, but I want a defensive Pokemon, something that feels like a Mudstale, something that feels like a big steel type.
That's my main criticism, right? Is like this team does not have good switch-in options. Like, if you don't get the lead you want, or you're in a sticky situation, if you have one of these hyper-offensive teams that just doesn't have mons that can tank the hits, like, you could find yourself in a really tough situation where it's like, I literally can't win this game because I cannot stall these turns and switch the momentum in my favor with a switch in, because anything I switch in is gonna die. You know what I mean? Like, no rock resists, like not even one fighting type in there just to like, cover that is pretty brutal. And Miss Magius is going to want to be running in a Prison Trick Room set a lot on this team, because I don't see any way that this team operates under Trick Room, stalls it out, or survives it. You know what I mean? Like
you have to kill the setter.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not the easiest to do in a format that just got 4 more Follow Me Mons added in and just got a bunch of new toys to play with. Like it's going to be hard to stop Trick Room if they prep for it. And I like I said before, I just don't see how this team survives 4 Trick Room turns with these mons.
You're going to have to really... Go ahead, Steve.
I pulled up Roar and Dragon Tail and Circle Throw because of that. And we do have Dragon Tail on Cyclozar and Roar on Typhlosion if he really gets desperate and doesn't want to use Miss Magius.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this team really wants to obviously hit hard and first, and I'm not sure how many of these mons are picking up Okos. Like Typhlosion Eruption, super strong, but do we have a way to reliably ensure that this thing can go first, or to make sure that we can get Sunset up for it? Without Prankster, I feel like the value of Typhlosion drops quite a bit too.
But he's got Fake Out, he's got really fast Icy Wind and really fast Tailwind. So if you're building against this team, that would be the first thing I look at. How do I beat Tailwind, Terrafire, Eruption? Because that's the most threatening thing. Or even just Tailwind, Terra Ground, Earthquake from Landorus.
Yeah. One thing this team does have going for it, though, is it just has 3 like super good Pokemon like as its main threats. Like the Ogerpon, we haven't seen its play yet in draft, but we all know that this thing is going to be really good. Any mon that has these stats with Follow Me, with decent bulk and a 120 attack stat with a special move and special Terra characteristics,
20% damage boost.
Yeah, it's going to be really good, right? And like we've seen the Lando T be successful, the Torrentee throwing out Bleak Wind Storms, like there's a lot of good stuff here. It's just, is that back half enough to enable those mons to do what they want to do? I'm unsure.
Yeah, this is like the example, I would say, of a team of 1st and 2nd picks and 8th and 9th picks. In terms of broad, like there's a couple that are like crazy good, and then a lot of, well, I guess I'll take that because that's all I can afford.
I think if Furret and Camo were to mash their teams together, right? Because Camo has only has a Persian for a fast mode, but all of these bulky big Mons that can take over a game if things go well, and Furret has all of these fast Mons that are very strong that if things go wrong, then it falls apart. I would love to see, in the effort of balance. I don't know if that's necessary. It's windy out. Sorry.
Shuffle them together.
I am looking now at these low tiers a little more, and I do actually think Impidimp has a place here, just as a way to add bulk to the team. Like, if you are gonna play against a team that wants to set Trick Room, the Impidimp comes in, sets a couple screens for you, starts disrupting, parting shot, stuff. Does it get parting shot, or is that just the?
Yep, it does.
I love that. I love that.
So, I mean, this is actually, now that I see the Impidimp, I feel a little better, but once again, it's an Impidimp, right? Like, you wish that was a more premier support that could handle that, but he, maybe he does have more options than we're giving him credit for at the moment. Even the Weavile can be a disruptor with the fast fake out, the icy winds, there is some more depth to this team than maybe my first glance gave, but it is still a little questionable in my opinion.
I think this team is gonna straight up run over some people. I fully expect him to be able to win 2 to 3 games this season.
Yeah, it's gonna be 2-0s and 0-2s for sure.
Yeah.
This seems like a team that might never see a game 3 in 5 weeks.
Yeah.
So what are we thinking tier wise?
I'm putting in B. I'm a fan of the incredible hyper offense.
Yeah,
I think it's a little bit too fragile it's a little too fragile for me to put it in A. I'm with B as well.
But I think I like it. I think I like Camo's a little better, but
I'm gonna
I have it top C, low B.
I'm gonna put it top of C with the potential to move up. I think I like it a little better than Canada's team, just given those offensive threats at the top. But we're gonna move on to Heaven's team. Daddy, what do we got here? I think we got the hot commodity of the draft apparently, Como O.
man,
half the teams in the conference got sniped on this. So what's the big deal with this?
Everybody's second pick, round 2.
So there must have been a Cybertron video or something that came out the week of the draft because everybody wanted this thing so bad.
I brought it to Toronto. That's why I wanted it.
That's why everybody, because Steve brought it, not Cybertron. I knew it was one or the other. I mean,
that's why I wanted it. I don't know.
Basically the same person. So, Como it's super solid, right? Especially with Terra. So that 4 times weakness to Fairy becomes a resistance with just the click of a button, as long as you remember to do it, which sometimes we don't because we're old people, but the kids remember, okay? So I do think it's a super solid first pick, especially when you have redirection coming right after it. And I think Volcarona is a really solid redirector. I think part of what makes Volcarona so good is that it has the option to redirect or to go super offensive with that blistering 135 special attack stat. So I think that is a super solid pairing right there. And of course, Volcarona also has the Fairy Resist built in. So maybe you don't have to Terra on turn 1 if you set up a Rage Powder. I love to see the Wo-Chen, and this team does have a lot of Trick Room options. My problem with the Trick Room setters specifically, that are also 2 pretty potent Trick Room attackers, is that they share that Ghost weakness. And this team is a little Ghost weak overall. The only resistance is Komala, is that what it is called? Yeah, whatever it's called, which is not going to be on a lot of people's radar unless it's doing something that I don't know about. The ghost weakness scares me. Yeah, right. But the ghost weakness scares me a little bit, particularly with those 2 Trick Room setters. So that's my spiel.
I mean,
Here's the thing: if you spend a turn stopping Trick Room, congrats, Como just got off a Clangorous Soul or a Belly Drum or an Iron Defense.
Yeah.
And he also has that Rage Powder support for it's in the Volcarona, which can redirect all those hits. I'm gonna disagree with you, Daddy, on the Ghost weakness being a big deal. I really don't think there's a lot of Pokemon in this format that just threaten to KO you with a single Ghost type move. Most Ghost attackers I find are not maybe Spectrier would be the only one, but I don't even think it got drafted. And
neither did Fluttermane or Qianpao, the premier Ghost type of the format.
Yeah, I mean
also it's a Slowbro and a Dusknoir.
Yeah,
they're
which aren't dying anyway.
To
Fair.
And you know,
Yeah,
if the ghost
nothing.
is a big deal, like you said, you have that click of the button, all of a sudden you're a dark type and you don't care, you know, whatever. I don't think that's a crippling weakness to this team, but you know, this team does feel like it wants to set up a lot, I would say. Like the Clangorous Souls, obviously the Como O is a mon that's going to thrive off setting up. The Volcarona wants to be clicking Quiver Dance in some matchups for sure, you know, and you know, you got the Oricorio too to potentially steal a Quiver Dance, which I think is kind of cool synergy. Right? Isn't that how that works? Am I misremembering?
Yep, it'll
That is
double
how it works,
dance.
yeah.
So it could steal the Quiver Dance. You know,
Could steal the Quiver Dance and set up a Tailwind
yeah, you know,
in the same turn.
Sure.
Could be pretty sweet.
Could be good. You know, I think with some of these low tiers like the Eel and the Glimmet, those are, you know, mons that we've seen be effective in that low tier area. They are both EVL-Lite users, which I don't think is as big a deal as people say. I think it's fine to have 2 or 3 EVL-Lite users at the end of your bench, because reality is if you're bringing more than one of those, you're losing already. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So, you know, I really actually I am a fan of this team, and yeah, go ahead, Kobe.
Another thing that is super important, that is super easy to gloss over, is that Clangorous Soul is a dance move.
Yep.
Oricorio will Clangorous Soul after Como O does the button. It's terrifying.
I did not know that Clangorous Soul was a dance move, but yeah, okay.
That makes this an S tier Oricorio team, doesn't it?
It really does. Like as a meme Oricorio team, yes. Go watch some YouTubers play Clangorous Soul Oricorio. But a thing I think is really important to highlight on this team is the Wo-Chien. Have we talked a lot about the Wo-Chien yet? It's menacing. It's coming. It will win games. You spend all of your resources exploding the Como, you trade some mons, and suddenly you're in an end game that you just can't win against this. It's like Qian Pao, right? Oh, Wo-Chien's the next Qian Pao. But it's 17 points in a lower strength format. Wo-Chien will get you.
Yeah, I can certainly see Heaven building teams around. Okay, I need to KO. Like if you just look at this team for an example, if he was playing against himself, he would say, okay, I need to KO the Volcarona, and maybe the Oricorio, and then Wo-Chien wins.
Yeah, I think my major critique of this team would just be the damage is questionable at times. Like, you know, you have this Wo-Chien team, and Wo-Chien is going to harm your own physical attackers. Your main attacker on this team is Como O, which can be mixed, which I suppose is a good thing, right? But, you know, I'm failing to see that, like, consistent damage-dealing threat that doesn't require any setup to do damage. You know what I mean? Like, you have the Volcarona, which can certainly do a decent bit of damage, but, you know, these numbers are not that high relative to, you know, some of the other mons available in this format outside of the Volcarona on the special side. Like, you know, if you have an answer for that and you're able to stop setup, I think this team can struggle to break through walls in certain matchups.
Yeah, even more than the Dondozo Giri team, I would say Haze is mandatory against this team.
Yeah.
This is a team that just has to be setting up, right?
Who plays Heaven Week 1?
I don't know. I think it might be somebody in this call.
Colby Kodameron, coach of the Boca Raton Belly Bolts.
Uh-oh.
So, yeah, I guess he's got
Get your mirror
You haven't already played your week 1 match like I have?
Nope.
Oh, if only Colby had a Pokemon with competitive and Haze.
If only. Well,
Cut that part out.
Yeah, it's a shame that that's not the case. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have mixed feelings on this team, but I think I generally like it. What do you guys think about tier?
I like it too. I feel like the lack of physical attackers could be a problem too. I know Wo-Chien exists on this team. I get it, but there's not a whole lot going on the physical attack side without setup. So like we've talked about, you know, not to beat a dead horse, this team is very reliant on setup, which I feel like can come back to bite you.
Yeah.
Or something like a band or specs.
Yeah.
Or you know, like a light screen. Against
I think this team is still solid A for me.
Yeah, it's too bad. Too bad there's no last resort TM or move tutor for Kamala to learn last resort again, because that would be slick.
I think this is going at the top of B for me. I think
That's
I
what
like
I'm
it better
thinking.
than Camo's team. I don't quite like it as much as Kobe's team.
Yep, I'm 100% right there with you. Where's your labs? Speaking of the logo tier list, Reggie Labs, straight to S.
Nice.
Oh yeah, that is a sick
It's really cool.
logo.
Very clean, very modern. You know. Speaking of wild logos, take a look at this one, the crazy Cramorants. Look at
It's
this.
a
something.
Is that
crazy logo.
what mon is that in the mouth? Is that a
That's
It's
a
a
whale
whale
lord.
A whale
It's a
lord?
whale lord.
What did they do
Yeah.
to my man over here? Come
Biggest
on. I mean,
Cramorant you've ever seen.
yeah, really. This is like
It's
Dynamax.
Dynamax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Colby, you want to take the lead on this very icy blue team that we've got?
Very
looking at?
blue team. Oh,
Yeah.
speaking
Yeah.
of blue teams, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
In the other.
Gotcha.
No,
in
I
the other
think this.
conference.
I think this team is really cool. We have you look at the team and you're hit with all of this blue because you have a very clear ice mode in Ninetales, Articuno, Sand Slash. I think Slush Rush is a really cool ability. I think that it's well positioned in this meta. I think Ice and Steel are great types offensively. I don't know how good this mon is defensively, but I know that Articuno is an excellent value pick. I know. But I know that Articuno with Snow Cloak and just wanting to bring your snow, having this ice mode, it doesn't seem overly reliant on snow, but it's a really cool option. But then you can just kind of put the snow in the back, and you have your Noivern Tailwind. You have the Frisk with the Noivern picked up all the way down at the 7th pick, which I think is super late for a super good mon to support the Annihilate. I think Noivern Annihilate. Noivern clicks on Boon Burst, Annihilate clicks on being a ghost type, and goes hard. I think that this team has good numbers. I think that this team, this team has attacks that you don't want to take. You don't want to take the Rage Fist. You don't want to take any of the Blizzards and the Moonblast from the Ninetales. There's going to be speed on this team from Sandy Shock's Booster Energy. The Noivern being very fast. I don't quite know what Azelf does, but
A
I
boom,
think that-
baby.
Also explodes.
does it just go kaboom? I don't know. But I
Strongest
think
one in
that
the format.
I guess it
Yeah.
sets Trick Room prisons.
this
Is
team
it?
feels a little bit like Ferret's team if there were a little bit more well-roundedness to it. This is Ferret had this super hyper fast team, but it didn't feel like the parts really came together. I think that the parts really do come together on this. I'm sure I used to run Booster Energy screens Sandy Shocks because I like having that really fast screens option. That goes great with Annihilate. You have the Aura Veil for an Annihilate. You have, looking at the low end, I think the low end is just fine. You pick up the Intimidate with the Quillfish. You pick up a Trick Room something with Mudbray. You pick up Apom. Does Apom get... does Double Slap hit twice or many times?
Double slap is gone. Double hit. Or you're thinking tail slap, I think. But that is
I'm
also
looking for a move to multi-hit either Annihilate or Mudbray.
It
Right,
doesn't
I was-
exist.
It gets beat
Apom
up.
has,
Apom has beat up.
Quillfish has Pin Missile, right?
yeah. Apom has no way to take advantage of its skill link.
Oh, okay. Rip Apom. But yeah, I think my overall theory of this team, my review of it is that I think it's very synergistic with itself. It has a couple of very clear modes. It's good at doing the ice thing, but it's not overly reliant on it. And the Pokemon that aren't the ice types are still very good Pokemon. And I'm afraid of at least 8 or 9 of these Pokemon when I would have to prep against it.
Yeah, I think one point you made that I want to highlight is the benefit of having this Ninetales with the Annihilate. We've talked so much about how much Annihilate loves screens. Every season, we've had this Annihilate ranked very highly, and we've always been like, it loves having screen support. It loves that Grimmsnarl, that Klefki next to it. The Ninetales is kind of like the best of both worlds because you could set both screens for it simultaneously, while also posing a decent offensive threat. I think Ninetales definitely gets a boost over its original counterpart with the Alola form, right? Because Ice and Fairy are way better offensive
To attack with.
Yeah, like
And 109 speed is great to attack with.
Yeah,
Yeah, and Blizzard is a great move.
right.
Like,
Getting
I-
Moonblast
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, Moonblast is broken.
Fast
think-
gravity hypnosis.
The ice mode is obviously going to be a major prep point for opposing teams, given how much he has invested into it with the Sand Slash, the Articuno, and the Ninetales. But I don't think this team needs to be a snow team every week. You
Is
could
Sand Slash
totally
good?
You could
His
totally
Small
be-
looks
No.
bad.
It's not
I'm
good.
looking at it.
I don't think it's
not
good.
bad.
I don't
It's
think
not
Sand
bad.
Slash is good.
It's not bad. It's fine.
It's not terrible.
If you're looking at it like a defensive steel type, you're disappointed. You're going to be disappointed, right? But it can definitely do damage and take advantage of Slush Rush, which is what you're drafting it for. I think it's fine.
Can it though? It has base 100 attack.
Yeah, it's
I
gonna
think
either need Swords Dance or a Lumberry or a clear
Voice
amulet.
band,
Basically every
triple
single
axle.
Yeah, and
Is
it's
triple
gonna,
axle a thing?
on, right?
It's
it's
Yeah.
gonna be a
gone.
Terra hog also. Like it just wants to Terra out of that typing.
my opinion on this Sand Slash is going to be highly dependent on its nickname.
So what would be a good nickname for it then that would raise its points for you?
Don't ask me. Ask J-Star.
Okay, all right. I mean, we have to remember too, this was a 7-point mon. I think for 7 points, given the fact that he has natural snow, it's fine. I don't think anyone's expecting the Sand Slash to come every week and be that main damage dealer. Like that's what the Annihilate is for. So I don't really think the Sand Slash is a major knock. I like it. I think it's cool. If you're gonna draft a snow team, you may as well commit to the pit, right?
Yeah.
This team feels a little overly reliant on Quillfish for my liking because Quillfish is not good. And I feel like you're going to need it for its defensive typing a lot of the time.
Bluefish doesn't get EVLA, right?
Not this one.
Not this one.
That is correct. Yeah.
So, like, Fairy type looks pretty good into this team. Fire type looks really good into this team. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see those bottom 3 as very bringable at all. 2 of them are completely useless.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wish you had something more to punish those common types you're going to see into the snow core. Like, you have the Sandy Shocks to punish the opposing steel and fire types, for sure. But, like, it would have been nice to have one more thing that really punishes that as well. I guess you have the Annihilate to punish steel types. But, I don't know. I do kind of agree with what you're saying. The Quillfish.
And there's like barely any trick room mode here. It
Looks
just
like me and Steve were thinking about the same thing here as he's checking to see.
I mean, I guess
what phasing moves there
your
are.
trick room mode could just be set Aurora Veil and live with bulk
That's
up
true.
Annihilate, right?
Yeah, just protect around all the turns. Yeah, for sure. They're bulky enough to do it.
No really reliable way to get Tailwind set up either because there's no fake out.
Noivern is reliable.
Yeah, Noivern is 120.
Throw a Covert's Cloak on there. You're getting Tailwind.
Yeah, Noivern.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. Scarf doesn't exist. Nothing is outspeeding Noivern.
No.
Yeah.
You can.
Nothing. Don't forget about the defense boost with Ice. I think this is now that Ninetales is back, we could actually see because Obama Snow has its own problems, right? But Ninetales is actually a really good snow weather setter, and we're gonna see that these ice types that he has getting that defense boost as well, especially on the Articuno. That could be huge to have a natural way to bulk up that defensive side. Obviously you lose it if you Terra, right? But it also functionally makes Ninetales even bulkier than it really seems as well. So yeah, I quite like what this team's going for, and I hope to see some fun snow shenanigans, and I think it'll be fine. I like it.
Bounty to whoever brings a snowball against this team.
Heck yeah.
Bounty.
I don't know what that means.
What are you paying for a bounty?
Look, I've got a whole ribbon system that I'm working on. It's in the works.
I'm gonna put this team right in the middle of B tier. I think between Reggie Labs and the Piplubs for me. That's where I've got it.
Yeah, I got it right below
I
Camo.
like it a little less than that, but more or less the same. I think I'm gonna put it behind Camo.
Yeah, I just feel like it has a little more synergy than some of these other teams we've looked at. So that's what gives it the nod for me. But we've got the next J. We got 2 of them right in a row here. J Star. We've got J Ballister. And I have been taking a look at this team because I'm actually playing it week 1. Haven't done any major prep yet, but just taking a look at the lineup has me with some thoughts here. And holy guacamole, is Ursa
I like this
Blood
team.
Moon a scary Pokemon. My God, my goodness. It's really interesting because when this thing first dropped, I was like, I don't see how this is any better than Ursaluna, because you lose out on the Guts boost, and you also lose out on those nice spread physical stabs with the Earthquake. But then I realized you get Hyper Voice, and Mind's Eye takes this thing to the next level, because I had Ursaluna last season, and people would always just bring Terra Ghost, and then my nice Facade would become a useless turn, and you cannot do that against this Pokemon. Unless you have a really strong, and even if you do have a really strong Rock or Steel type, to eat that normal hit, the hyper voice or the, whatever it's got on the special side for normal type attacks. It also has stab earth power. You really can't game plan about living this Mons hits, given that it has the special version of Scrappy, which is just crazy to me.
It also doesn't need to waste its item on burning itself.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another thing, right? And the Oranguru, I could not imagine a better partner for this thing, because Instruct Hyper Voice is just gonna kill people. You cannot let this team get Trick Room up at all. And it's how are you supposed to stop the Trick Room when you have a sturdy Follow Me Mon? You can't even plan around Okoing the Follow Me and then getting a taunt off or something, because it has sturdy. So, with Terra and Oranguru being just an amazing Trick Room setter with inner focus, this team's going to get Trick Room when it wants it, and the Ursaluna is going to be a problem. My goodness. And as far as the rest of the team, this is definitely a top-heavy team, right? These first 3 Pokemon are the centerpiece, and everything else kind of revolves around supporting it. You do have decent options here. The Crawdaunt is good value with adaptability, gets knockoff now, which is really good. But the Belly Bolt, the Crawdaunt, they all want Trick Room up, and he has a really reliable way of getting it, so that's going to be tough for people to stop. The Thwackey and the Fletchender, I think, are good value NFEs, right? You get that fast Tailwind if you want to try to match a fast mode. Not that, we really have the best abusers here, but it's certainly an option. And the Thwackey can definitely activate that Grassy Surge for some nice regen, get that grass boost on the Ogerpon. I don't know, it's a cool team that's really scary to prep for. What do you guys think?
I like it. I also like this team. It's got cool stuff. I think you're maybe a little low on. I mean, not necessarily low on, but Combat Tauros, I think, is totally something that needs respect in prep. Bellybolt and Crawdaunt, I agree, great value pickups to complement this 48 points on 2 Mons.
Raging Bull,
65 points on 3 Mon.
Raging Bull is a really good way to break through screens. We were just talking about, how do I beat the Trick Room? Oh, let's just have Impidimp or Ninetales set screens. And Tauros being here as a great intimidator, but also as a Raging Bull screen breaker, is huge for this team.
Definitely.
Yeah, the Trick Room mode is incredibly strong on this team, and getting it set up, like Tsukaba pointed out earlier, is going to be very reliable. It also has the the priority Tailwind if they do want to go fast ever. And, there's a couple Mons on this team that can take advantage of Tailwind, mostly Tauros and Ogerpon, which will both appreciate it, to launch off some pretty powerful attacks. You throw a Choice Band on Tauros, and close combat's killing a lot of things.
Swords Dance, Ogerpon, Terrid, and then you get the only 100% accurate rock move in the game.
Accelerock.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, honestly, I think it's really nice having base 50 and 60 Mons, because it gives you that opportunity to run them as in the Trick Room, which is what people expect. But you could totally do max investment Ursaluna on speed, and in the right matchup, setting up a Tailwind, it'll go first anyway. That was one of the big things with my team last season, is I had a really strong Trick Room mode, but I also had a way to set fast Tailwind, and my Mons were just on that cusp where they're slow enough to take advantage of Trick Room, but just fast enough in that 50 range to also potentially take advantage of a Tailwind with investment. And that's going to be a nice mix-up that this team has available to it, for sure.
Probably not even going to have to run Timid in a lot of those. You're still going to be able to run Modest.
Yeah, maybe
with the Tailwind.
Yeah, if you have a matchup.
It's also a little bit of a hindrance, the fact that a lot of the Trick Room Mons are in the 50s. They're not super slow. So there's going to be a lot of teams that have Mons that can go slower. Obviously, J-Star's team is not going to be one of them.
Yeah.
But there will be teams that can go slower in Trick Room.
You better make use of that turn, because you're getting Instruct Hyper Voiced, and there's not much you can do about it.
Well, okay, I want to talk a little bit more about... Okay, I always want to talk about Bellybolt, because I love Bellybolt. Bellybolt's so good. Bellybolt has its 2 phenomenal partners here in Oranguru, having telepathy to not get hit with parabolic charges and discharges and Instruct. Oh, I love that pairing. But also Ursaluna, for the same reason. Bellybolt is going to click on good buttons, and Ursaluna is going to hit Protect, and then suddenly Bellybolt is going to hit for free all the time, get discharges. Okay, I'll get off my belly bolt now. But Ogerpon. Ogerpon here, I think, is actually a defensive mon. I think that Ogerpon is here to click on Follow Me. I think that it's not great that it's a rock type, but at least it's got sturdy. And it's going to have Ivy Cudgel because having a 100% crit increased rate rock move is just amazing. But I think that the most valuable thing that Ogerpon can be doing in a lot of these matchups is to actually click on Trick Room, to click on Follow Me so that Trick Room can go up. It's not just an offensive, it's also the fastest thing on the team, but it's this really good support mon to get Trick Room up when necessary. Thoughts?
Yeah. I will say that, if you are, that's going to be a lead people have to plan for, right, is the Ogerpon and the Oranguru. The thing is, though, like, if you are setting Trick Room with this team, you better be making good use of those turns, right? Like, if you are leading the Ogerpon and the Oranguru, and that Ogerpon is a defensive Follow Me mon, that's also kind of fast, right? Then you have to find a way to get the Ursaluna in safely that doesn't just get it KO'd, right? So, like, you definitely, it's not, like, free, right? You definitely have to play around that and make sure you're able to get it in position. But, it has the tools to do it, and I think it's going to be really hard to stop, despite the fact that, you do have to be careful that you're not wasting those precious Trick Room turns.
Yeah, and the other team can also use that Trick Room turn to set up some boosts, switch in a Fake Out Mon so that next turn Ursaluna can't attack anyway, and then Oranguru has to attack instead of doing after you, or not after you, instruct, which it wants to do. You can protect. You can definitely spend some time stalling out the Trick Room on this team.
Absolutely.
Ice weakness could be a little bit of a problem too.
Belly Bolt's got it covered.
Yeah.
Belly Bolt's got it covered.
Belly Bolt's always got it covered, guys. Belly Bolt's so good.
Yeah, no, like, great. You're not really getting strong stab fire moves.
Yeah.
Tauros with stab fighting.
I will say, maybe
no steel type, but yeah.
If we're gonna be critical of other teams for not having a good Trick Room mode, I think we should bring up the fact that if you're not setting Trick Room, the options are pretty lacking, I would say, on this team as far as, like, winning other speed wars, right? Like, you have that Ogerpon with Follow Me, which can be good for counteracting that, but, like, there's nothing here that enables you to go first outside of the Gale Wings Fletchender, which is good, right? But, like we addressed before, the main abuses of that are just the Tauros and the Ogerpon. I would have liked to see maybe one more fast, threatening mon that could come in, late game even, and sweep after the Trick Room ends, something like that. But it's certainly not a deal breaker for this team, and it's going to be really hard to stop.
There. Yeah, let's put it on the list.
All right. I think this is definitely an A-tier team for me.
I think it's an A-tier team. I feel like the Belly Bolt's better.
Yeah, me too.
Or do I like this team better? No, I think I like the Belly Bolts better, but I think it's close. I do really like this team.
It's definitely going to cause issues for people. We've got the last team of this first part of our draft review for this conference, and that is Lackey's team, a new coach to the VBL-S. And we've got a cloth after
the Done Dirty Dancers.
Plenty of seasons. We finally get it. Steve, what's up with this cloth?
Not a lot, to be honest. I am playing Lackey week 1. We are playing on Monday. Let's start with the obvious. This is perhaps the worst type chart I've ever seen. You are able to hit this team neutrally with basically every single type, and they have debilitating weaknesses to fighting with 1 resist, 1 ground resist immunity, 1 bug resist, and 0 fairy resist, no interaction to dragon at all, and a quasi-rain team with a single water resist.
Oh yeah, people are bringing outrage versus this team.
Now, all that out of the way, you have one of the best Tailwind Mons outside of Prankster and outside of Roaring Moon with Iron Jugulis. You have Mousehold, very fast, threatening Technician Population Bomb. You've got perhaps the best Imprisoned Trick Room Mon in the game of Farigiraf. an incredibly threatening rain mode. If you bring Riolu, you got rain turn 1. If you bring Jugulus, you got booster rain if you want it, or rain after Tailwind. You got Intimidate with Overquill. Vigoroth is reasonably bulky. Anti-Trick Room, we already said the Imprisoned Vigoroth. You also got Copycat Riolu if you want to bring that. I don't really believe in the Raichu Pincurchin. I think they're both pretty terrible. However, the Mousehold Vigoroth Jugulus plus one of the Rain Sweepers plus Overquill is a very strong core, and leading poorly into this team will immediately mean that you lose.
So the reason this type chart looks so crazy is there are 7 single type Pokemon.
Yeah.
There's just not the depth of typing, and also 3 doubled typings, 4 doubled typings within that.
Yeah.
Like within that.
And he's missing some key types too, like where's the steel, the fairy, the fire, the grass, you know?
Yeah.
Like those
Yeah,
staples.
I mean,
that's also part of the problem.
But yeah, there are Mons that I like here, right? I mean, those top 3: Mousehold, Vigoroth, Iron Jugulus, Floatzel, Beartick. A lot of I think this is a team that's going to have to take advantage of its Terras very, like, you got to have the right Terra every time, and if you mess up your Terra in a game, you've probably lost that game. But yeah, Cloth. It's funny, but
it doesn't even get Shell Smash. Like, its ability is Shell Smash, but half as good, and you need to be at half health. Why didn't they just give it Shell Smash? Like, I don't
There's
understand.
Shell armor, but not smash. What the hell?
Yeah. Angry.
It looks like something that would smash its own shell too, right?
Yeah, it looks kind of angry.
Look at it.
You know, go ahead, Dad.
Go ahead.
You first.
Yeah, so I feel like a mon that is overlooked by a lot of people, and I can say this after using it, is Overquill. I think Overquill is a super strong Pokemon. There was not a single week where I didn't either bring it. I brought it every week except maybe one. Its typing is actually super solid, and you throw a Terra Flying on that thing, and all of a sudden, like, it's bulky. You put a Salt Vest on it. It's living multiple hits from different things. It's pretty powerful. It's got Gunk Shot. It's got Crunch. It's got a really good support move pool. It's got Haze. Intimidate is always super strong, and the option for Swift Swim on this team is really nice too. So I think that's a nice little addition. The type chart is going to hold it back defensively. This team is definitely lacking, especially on the special side, and with all these weaknesses, not having any really dominant defensive switch-ins, I think is going to be a really major problem here.
Yeah, I'm just looking for like that consistent damage dealing Pokemon. Like, is it Mousehold on this team? Like, honestly, like, you know, these attack numbers are not great. You know, the Jugulus is the highest special attack on the team, and you want the Jugulus to be clicking Tailwind a lot of the time with one of his turns. You know, and as far as your like consistent damage dealers, like, you have some good numbers. Like, you have the Beartick 130 attack, but like finding the right situation for Beartick to do well is hard.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's like the Mousehold is really, I feel like, has to be that like population bomb threatening mon on this team. Like, I think most weeks you're going to want to opt for that Technician offensive set just because you need damage with these other mons you're bringing. Like the Vigoroth, it's not passive, but it's also not scary damage output. You know what I mean? Like, Vigoroth's there for the utility of Armor Tail, the ability to set Trick Room and Prison, but the offense is lacking. You know, like the Jugulus, you want to be running the Tailwind, you know, with some bulk investment and some speed investment maybe, which is taking away from that attacking output. So finding the right situation for these lower tiers to get good attacks off is going to be challenging. I think this team is going to struggle in the damage department a lot of the time.
I like your assessment that Mousehold.
Okay. Go for it.
That Mousehold is the damage on this team.
And whichever mon is clicking Wave Crash.
Sure. And I think that a lot of what we're seeing is that there's a lot of redundancy on this team that doesn't really go anywhere. The redundancy isn't helpful. Like when you have multiple ice types on a nice team, there's 2 electric types and the Jugulus, which I think is a cool core, but they're naturally hard to kind of work together. But it's a half-assed Rain team. There's Overquill with Swift Swim. There's Beartick. Like, yes, you can do Riolu, Prankster, Rain Dance. Good for you. What did you get from that? Now you have a Riolu and a Beartick on the field, and you clicked on a fast button once. Here I come with my guy and bonk. I would like to. This is Lackey's first season with the VBL, yes?
Yep.
Yes.
Is this Lackey's first season drafting? Do we know this?
No, he's
I
in
don't
some
know.
leagues with Ryan and Tux.
Cool. I think that this is an excellent opportunity for some pre-week one or some post-week one trades. I think that this team has a lot of really cool cores. I think that the Farigiraf Pincushion is a really cool Trick Room core, especially with the Overquill. I think Jugulus, Raichu, Pincushion is awesome. I think that Mousehold is 19 points and a check that you can cash. I would love to see Mousehold traded for Salamence or Arcanine. I was looking at the board. Arcanine would be my preference because I just love Arcanine. I would love to see one of Floatzel or Beartick traded for another 8-point Mon, preferably a Grass type, maybe a Steel type. I think that this is one of those teams that you don't have one trade that, improves a thing. I think that this team actually is meant to do a full 3 or 4 Mon. Like Sukaba, you've done this twice in a row now, where you, not this season, but where you trade out half of your main picks for something that ends up, the draft, you had a plan but didn't come together. I would love to see you, Sukaba, work with Lackey to find that big trade.
Homework.
Hey, I mean, if he's interested, my DMs are open. Everyone's helpful for that. I mean, yeah, I think there's some redundancies here that we pointed out. The Beartick and the Floatzels playing a similar role as that Rain Sweeper without the Rain Setter. You'd have that manual rain, but there's definitely some trades here that could elevate this team. There's some good foundation. I would just like to see a little more damage, maybe some better defensive pieces to fix this type chart. But if we want to throw this in the tier lists, I think
real quick, I think the rain and the electric surge modes are super cool and different, and they could be really fun. I just feel like the Mons don't necessarily hit hard enough.
And that is true. That's something to be said, is that I kind of appreciate that we have our first electric terrain team, right? Like, that's kind of cool. Ever since we got these Cork Drive Mons.
Yeah, what happened to that team?
Yeah. Do you guys remember how that one worked out?
No.
Did we play?
I don't know.
I really wish the Raichu Alola Surge Surfer's cool, because it's a cool ability that it takes advantage of terrain, but I just don't think doubling the speed is what this Mon needs. You know what I mean?
It needs a lot.
It needs rising voltage. It lost rising voltage.
I wish it got an attack boost off of that electric surge. You know what I mean? Like, that would really elevate this a little bit for me. But it's like I said, the pieces are there. It definitely can win games. It's not a bad team by any stretch of the imagination. It's got potent threats. I would just like to see a little more damage and cohesion, personally.
Yeah, I agree.
The combination of Mousehold, Farigiraf, Jugulus, some pair of those is probably going to lead every game. And if you get it wrong, and he brings a set that can blow up, your Trick Room setter or your Tailwind setter after he gets up his Booster Energy Tailwind, you're in a bad spot.
Or if you make the grave mistake of ignoring the Mousehold and trying to eliminate the other threat, and it just starts pop bombing your whole team, that you could definitely steal a couple games with that. So, I think just based on those weaknesses we pointed out, this is probably going to be my lowest team out of this first 8. I'm probably going to put it below Canner's team in the C tier, but I'm open to
That's right, what I did as well.
Alternative opinions on that one.
I have it at the bottom as well.
Yep, bottom C tier for me as well.
Much higher on this. I'm going to put it above.
It's in my A tier for highest potential.
That is vague
in my C tier.
and generous.
It's in my C tier.
I'm putting it above Camo.
Oh, okay. In B tier then, for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's reasonable, guys. I mean, I don't think this is a D tier team at all. I think even these C tier teams we've looked at are pretty good, but just a little more exploitable weaknesses than the rest that we looked at. But that is only half of the Hearthstone Conference, and we are going to take a brief intermission and come back at you guys with the next 8 teams, those end of the alphabet losers like myself and Steve. So we'll get back to you guys on that in a little bit, and until then, have a great night. Thanks for watching.